good morning. This is the first Sunday in January, the year 2021. Can you believe it? 2021. It's almost seems impossible when you think back over the years how in the world did we get here this fast. We had an interesting good time with Shirley playing the piano earlier. Some of those songs were good old songs, and it brought back a lot of memories. And especially in this day and age in this country, we're thinking about those memories. And there are some people who are on the other side of things who say you got to stop thinking about back then, you know. But the Bible doesn't teach that kind of stuff. The Bible teaches remember those ways, dig up those old wells. If you were, remember where you came from. Remember the move of God back then, and don't depart from it. The problem today is the church world has departed from the substance of how it began and what it is and what it was and how it proclaimed and whatnot. There were certain things about that back then that could have been improvement, but that's always the case. But it's gone. It's left what it is. It's gone a different way, and that's a real sad thing. And it puts a yearning in people's hearts. I'm thinking of that verse that says, "Take your harps down from the willow and start to play them again." Start to play that revival music, if you will. Some of what we surely did today, and we need that. There are a lot of people who are longing for that, and then there are those who are scared to death of that real thing too, claiming it to be old school when they're in the new school. There always has been sort of a tension in that, I suppose, but nonetheless, we are in Romans and continuing with that, and Romans is an exciting place. So surely you'll turn that back over to the monitor for a minute. We started in verse 18 with this paragraph, and this paragraph runs from verse 18 to verse 27, or to verse 25, excuse me, and we'll get there eventually. But here the whole thing has to do with the unpacking of the sons of God. That's very important with what verse 18 says. Let me just read that, and then verse 19 is what it says, excuse me. Verse 18 leads us into that by saying the sufferings of this present order are not in the same ballpark as the glory that's fixing to come. And then in verse 19 where it says here, which we're going to deal with, the earnest expectation of creation groans for the revelation, actually the unpacking of the sons of God. It's the unpacking of the sons of God that is the issue here. Now, and it says, a good translation would be something like this, as I would see it. The deep craving of the entire created order. Now get that. That's important. The deep craving of the entire created order. We would call that, as we're going to call it throughout this teaching, that subhuman creation. That's not a derogatory statement. It's just a statement that's used to describe anything that's not human. The creation that is not human. That's assuming that human is the crown of creation, which it is. Which it is. God created everything else first in order for man to enjoy, and then created humanity, which is the crown of the creation. Which, by the way, is seen in the old school way of calling a personnel department instead of human resource. People think, oh, that's just human resource name is, what a beautiful name for that. This is human people are resource. No, that's not what it is. It's a direct and deliberate move from persons created in the image and likeness of God, from that to humanity as simply a resource, as would a tree be a resource. And man, when you see that in the church world uses that phrase, human resource, Christian colleges use that phrase, human resource, what a slap, in my opinion, what a slap in God's face. And that says that we're plugged in. When we use the word human resource, we're plugged into the other side. It's not a godly side. So everything that's set, that's why we call it subhuman. The entire craving of the entire created order, with wide open arms, awaits the intense expectation, it says here, of the unpacking of the sons of God. And that's what we're going to be fussing with for the next several sessions here. Now we want to unpack this very carefully, and there's a lot in here. There's a lot in here to get, and I'm going to want to take adequate time to explain it and get on it. I want to make a mention of an old guy by the name of Gene Scott. Now, in some people's minds, the older people say, well, that'll raise the hackles on the back of their neck. Sometimes it seems like a lot of people didn't like him. And he certainly had some difficulty in life, but he grew up, we used to be an AG and was with the colleges and whatnot of the Assemblies of God, Central Bible College in Springfield, I believe, if I remember the history right. And a few things happened, and he got sideways with them and whatnot, and I'm not here to discuss that. But Gene Scott, actually, when he did die, he died right, and I'm looking forward to meeting him someday out yonder, if you will. But I want to say this: he was one of the greatest minds in grammar, and Hebrew, and especially in Greek grammar, and in other in Aramaic too, and whatnot. In the ancient languages, he was good, and he had a program that that had things in there that I didn't care for, certainly, but the teaching is what I'm getting at here. And he taught. He doesn't preach it. He taught, and he taught from the original language. He had massive white marking boards that were actually a whiteboard covered with glass, so he's actually writing on the glass. And I remember him writing the Greek text down there and explaining it from there to grammar and whatnot. He wasn't out to press a homiletical, and I used to teach homiletics, preaching, and we were good at it. It's good there, but I don't. When we do this, I'm not doing it. I'm teaching. I'm bringing this out line by line and word upon word. That's what I want to do, is to bring that out. I'm not trying to make myself like him or like anybody else. I'm doing what is in me to do, what God has led me into and called me into. I have four brothers, three of whom are in ministry. The other one actually is, but not really. But by his life and what he does is more in ministry than others. But each one of those, Terry, Harry, and Jerry, each have their own, as well as Gary, but Terry, Harry, and Jerry, who pastor churches in Ohio, each have their own characteristics, their own what they do. Terry, when he does the videos, he'll say, "Oh, what a beautiful day! This is a day!" And all this it's hilarious to watch him. He'll go through there, but he has solid content. It's incredible. And then Harry's altogether, he's different. Harry is studious, and so he really has the data that he's really good at it. And Jerry's more he's up in the air, and he's all over the joint, good solid content and funny and all of that. And I do what I do. Everybody does what they do, what God has given us to do. Put all that together, and you got good things, and that's what I'm saying. But what I do is not what they do. What I do is this, out of the text. I'm committed to unpacking this text, and I know I've gone a long way and wasted time on here, some would say, but I think it's good to try to understand that. The text has got some interesting things here. If you'll notice, surely you turn that back around. I keep her busy, and she's going to quit on me one of these days, maybe. I keep her too busy, but I always will take her out to eat after we're done, and that fixes that. Anyway, the expectation. What expectation? It says the expectation of the creation here, and this is what we're talking about, of subhuman, of the entire created order, everything. This we must get in our head what this is. It's an incredible statement. We'll talk more about that in a while. And the word expectation is the important word. We're going to consider that here. Eagerly awaits. And that's over here. We're going to talk about that meaning there. Eagerly awaits what? The unpacking of the sons of God. The sons of God are the true believers in God. The expectation of creation eagerly awaits the unpacking of the sons of God. Now people will read that and think, oh well, that's just, that's what it says. But what is behind that? What is it really, what is that fussing with? And we may only get this far, just right here today, and that's fine. We'll get the rest later. But I want to talk about that. The expectation of the created order eagerly awaits the unpacking of the sons of God. And the sons of God are referring to the true believers. I started using that phrase now, the true Christian and the true believers, because there's a big difference, especially nowadays. That gap is big and getting bigger between a true believer and one that isn't quite there. All right, now verse 19, the background here, is written to give explanation and support to verse 18. Verse 18 says that the suffering of this present time is not in the same ballpark as the glory, the presence of God that is fixing just about ready to be here, right around the corner from us. And that's the statement that now the rest of this, verse 19, explains that, okay? But even verse 19 in itself is going to require more explanation, and that's what the rest of the verses in this paragraph do. So verses 19 through 30, for example, as a whole, give support and explain actually verse 18 and what went before. And in that, verses 19 and 21 will give us a content of hope. This is all about hope, actually. 19 and 21 will give us the content of hope, and verses 20 and then 22 through 27 will give us the context of hope, which is this present suffering order that's out of whack. And then verses 28 through 30 will give us the certainty of hope, and that's a pivotal point there. Now, this word here, expectation, okay, is down here. Apokaradokia. 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 That's the word. Apokaradokia. Dokia. Apokaradokia. All right, what does that word mean? Let's break it up. It's got this word here, apo, is a prepositional prefix, means from or away from. All right, it's like extending something out, Kara is a word for head. All right, and the head has a neck on it, and the neck is attached to the lower part of the head, attached to the upper part of the body. So we're talking about the head here, and dakia, the dakia part, means outward appearance, what it looks like on the outside. And from this combination, we get the idea of to watch or to be eager hope. And the idea behind it is this: that one's head, when we see something happening, we see something happening, a car driving down the street, and we're having coffee at the kitchen table on the front window there, and we see somebody walking down or whatnot like that, just to illustrate. What happens is this: the idea is you stretch your head around like that, away from the body, if you will, stretch it out, and what? We're looking at the outward appearance of being interested in that. We want to see more. That's the idea here. So when it says then that the expectation of creation, that expectation pictures the entire created order as stretching out its neck to look around the corner for the approaching unpacking of the sons of God here. That's what it is. Two things. The expectation. That expectation is stretching out the neck, again, looking around the corner, looking for that revelation, the unpacking of the sons of God. All right? That's what it's doing. That's what this word means. It's only used in one other place in the New Testament that I'm aware of, and that is Philippians 2:20. And in Philippians 2:20, it's associated with the idea a concept of hope, just as it is here. And what it indicates there is a confident, same as here, expectation. It means stretching out your neck, looking around the corner for the unpacking of the sons of God. All right? We'll break that down just a little more. I'll give you an illustration on that. And we've already gone through the breaking down there. So what does this refer to when it says created order? Let's understand that. I want to point to a slide here. This one here, surely will go back over there to it. These are the possibilities. Now I've heard things, the created order. I've heard some goofy preachers say some goofy things, and some very well known goofy preachers say some goofy things about what this is. What's it referring to? What is this created order referring to? Well, some would say the whole of creation, namely humanity, believers, and non-believers, and angels, all of it. That's a possibility that some raise. I don't buy that at all. All of humanity. Some say that. We would reject that too. Some would say it's referring to unbelieving humanity only. That's not the context whatsoever. Believers only. Not really. Not as the created order. What is the created order? Angels only. Obviously not. Subhuman nature with the angels. Subhuman nature, yeah, but the angels are not subhuman nature, so it's not that, and the angels were created before us. Subhuman nature with humanity in general. Us along with the created order. No, it's not that either. Subhuman nature only, and the answer to that is no. It's not that. It's not those things here. It is the entire created universe outside of humanity. We're going to put all this in perspective. Excuse me, as we move forward here. Now the expectation is an important thing here, and then we'll deal with eagerly awaits. We want to deal with that too. When my grandparents would come down from Saginaw, Michigan and drive down to Woodville, Ohio to visit us, and they did that actually quite often, really. We as kids, we were younger kids, we had bicycles, and we would really want to see them coming. I mean, Grandma would always give us a little money, and they always would have some cookies or something with her, and we just have a great time. So what we would do on the day of their arrival, we knew roughly what time they were going to be coming in. We don't know exactly what time they would be coming in, but we did know part. So we would begin to do this. What is that? Expectation. We had an expectation. There was an expectation on the inside that they were coming. We knew they were coming. We didn't know the exact when. So that expectation, let me put it like this. Do you believe Jesus is returning? Is there a general expectation in your life for Jesus returning? You are expecting him to come possibly at any time, not knowing the precise time, but that expectation? What if you really do have that expectation, your posture will be like this. Craning your neck around the corner to see if he's coming yet. Looking up, our redemption is coming close. Jesus is going to return like he went in the clouds, coming down out of the east. He's coming. Does it crane our neck? In other words, when we see things happening in this country as the political mess and all of that evil has been around, what do we do with that? Has our expectation of the coming of the Lord been diminished because of that? Has that caused us to recede and our expectation sort of decrease? And a lot of people it has. Not in me. He's coming. It doesn't matter what it looks like. He's coming. And I'm looking around the corner like this. We're looking around the corner. Now what we did as kids, that looking around the corner, we'd get on our bicycles and we'd drive about 7 blocks or so down to the edge of town on Route 20 in Woodville there, and where the dairy aisle was. And that's almost where the edge of the city, if you the edge of the village, if you will. And we would wait there, and we're waiting there. Our expectation is there, and we're looking down Route 20, and we knew the kind of car they had, and we could recognize it way back. We were watching as the traffic is going by, and then we would it's coming. We see it way out there. I think where we are right now is in that position. We see it way out there. If you're not on the edge of the village, looking down the highway, proverbially speaking, watching for Grandma and Grandpa's car, looking for the first sign of it coming down Route 20, now there may be a big semi in front of it, and you can't see it until the angle gets a little better. Then you can see, oh, it's just behind that big semi that's casting a big shadow over that. Listen, that's where we are. There are things in this country that are casting a big shadow on what a lot of people believe in the expectation of Christ coming, if you will. You got to ignore that. You got to ignore the fake news. You got to ignore all the junk that's out there. And man, I'm telling you, it's a mess out there. You cannot believe it. You need to stop watching and reading that stuff. You can't believe it. It's coming. Jesus is behind that. He's coming. It's on his way. And we'd go out there and craning our neck and look out there. That's our expectation. We are expecting to see that vehicle coming toward us. And when we see it, that turns into the eagerly awaiting of the unpacking of the sons of God. Eagerly awaiting here is this. We got two prepositional prefixes to a main root. First, apal, and then ek. And apal means from, and ek means out of. And it's kind of interesting because in all the passages that talk about the resurrection of Christ or the resurrection from the dead, a lot of the translation says resurrection from the dead, which doesn't indicate that it was ever in the dead. That the person was ever dead. In the Greek text, whenever there's a reference to the resurrection from the dead, it's this preposition here, the red one, ek, which means it's the same one or exit signs. It means out of. The resurrection of Jesus was out of the dead. The resurrection of Lazarus was out of the dead. The resurrection of us is going to be out of the dead. And there'll be a distance put, but that word apal is not there. But it's in here, so it's from, out of, and this word means to receive. But there are two words for receive. One could be lambano, and this one is dekomai, and this particular one is dekotai, so it's apek dekotai, eagerly awaits. This is from and away from, out of, and to welcome or embrace, right here. Now I'm going to explain the use of that word. Dekomai, to receive or to welcome. A lot of people look to the Corinthian passage that says that the things that it refers to, and I'm trying to recall the Greek text right in there, I can almost see it. It refers to that the natural man cannot receive the things of God. They're spiritually discerned and whatnot. And they say, see, an unsaved person cannot read the Bible and understand what it's saying. But if that's the case, granted, there'd be a lot that doesn't understand because of relationship with them. But nonetheless, if that's the case, there's nobody can ever be saved. First of all, you got to be able to understand the language and what a text is saying to understand that you need it. So that can't be it. And that word would be lambano. The natural man can't even receive anything. He's not in a position to receive, and is not in a lot of ways. But that's not the word. The word in that text is dekomai, which means to welcome. Remember when it says, and light manifested itself in darkness, and darkness couldn't overcome? That word there is lambano with a kata on the front, meaning it could not receive it with the idea of holding it down. If dekomai would have been used there, a whole different implication would have been said. But this is it. Darkness is not in a position to receive light with the intention of suppressing it. It's not going to happen any way, shape, or form. That's an example of the other one. This one here, deco, means to welcome with open arms. When we greet, that's why there's such a travesty with what's going on today, the church world. You can't, all the distance and this and that and the other. I'm not making reference one way or the other, but that is absolutely opposite of what God is. I'll tell you one thing. Jesus went right to the leper and touched the very sore spot on that leper and made the leper whole. Just saying. Now, eagerly awaits. Decomai. If the world, in other words, does not welcome truth. The world is not welcoming truth. It doesn't want it. It's not receiving it by embracing it. And that's what we do when we see one another. We embrace one another, if you will. Call it a spiritual hug or whatever. But we embrace one another as God embraces us, if you will. And that's what the eagerly wait is talking about. Is a embracing. When you see them, you embrace them. Now, the expectation is looking like this. Oh, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And we eagerly await them. What do? We got back on our bicycles at that time when we saw them coming down Route 20. And we'd hightail it down the back roads, down College Avenue. It's like crazy. Just driving our bikes, riding as fast as we could, all the way down, because we knew the corner around which they would turn to come right to our place, right on our block. And we would beat them there. The reason why we would beat them there, because we'd go down the back road while they had to wait on the lights and whatnot. See, so we knew they never would beat us. No matter how fast they tried to go, they can't go because there's a speed limit. And we could at least do that speed limit and more on our bicycles so we could get down to the corner. So we're trucking them down there, right? We're out there. The expectation, we saw it, they're coming. Hey, there he is. Let's be right behind this cloud. Gee, Jesus is right there. He's coming. What are we going to do? Let's get into position. That's the eagerly awaits. Let's get into position to welcome him. So that's what we were doing. We get into position, ride ourselves right down to the front of the house. And just as we got there, we look around, sure as shooting, that old Chevy coming around the corner, or the Chrysler, whichever one it was driving, come around the corner. And we were eagerly awaiting. We parked the bicycles and stood there. And they drove right in front of the house and opened the car doors and got out, and we welcomed them. And Grandma always gave us our quarter or 50 cents or whatever, a dollar, whatever it is she had. We are awaiting them, to embracing them. That's what this means. That's what this passage really is talking about. The expectation. Now, one, we need to have an expectation. And we need to eagerly await. We need to eagerly await. Now, what's interesting here is the unpacking of the sons of God, which is translated Revelation, if you will, but it's an unpacking, and the emphasis is on each son of God as an individual, and then together as a whole. Now, there's something about every believer that God wants to show off. To show off to the universe. And when we get there, Grandma would come, open up her purse or her bag, and she would bring stuff out. Now, the first thing we were interested in is the money. That would be in her purse, and she'd pull that out and say, here, 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 here. Oh, great, but there's other stuff, too. She would always have some cookies, and boy, those good sugar cookies she would have there. We were eagerly awaiting at the front door. After we were expecting them, we came, and she got out and started unpacking. You understand? She didn't get out and throw the whole thing on the ground and there and say, here, rifle through that. No, she individually. She took each thing, the cookies, the fudge, the this, the that, whatever it was, and other gifts, and unpacked them to us. That's what this is meaning, an unpacking of the sons of God. Eagerly awaiting that unpacking of the sons of God, which means this, that right now, that identity is somewhat concealed. Now catch this point here. Our sonship is veiled because we're not there yet. Jesus hasn't come. And we're not there yet. We're not there. It hasn't happened yet. That's why there's still that eager expectation, and that the expectation of looking over the entire created order is doing this, looking like this for the unpacking of the sons of God. And all of the creation is almost personified here. It knows it's happening. It just knows. It knows it's happening, and we'll get to how it knows next time. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. All of the created order, everything is like this, waiting for the sons of God to be unpacked. Each one individually unpacked before the world. And when it happens, all of the created order will welcome it and embracing the unpacking of every son of God, of every true believer. But right now, that hasn't happened. Right now, our sonship is somewhat concealed. We are already the sons of God now. Paul talks about that earlier here. But our sonship is veiled. It's incognito, in a sense, if you will. Now, that parallels Jesus' teaching, by the way, in parables. Jesus taught in parables for one of two reasons. One was to reveal the kingdom of God to those who wanted it. All right? Now, the entire created order, subhuman created order, wants to view and to see and to experience the unpacking of the sons of God, which will happen when Jesus comes back. But there's a segment of creation that doesn't want to see that. And that segment of creation are those who don't believe. That segment of creation that doesn't want that is evil. Is all the structures of this fallen world, and we're not talking about subhuman creation here, the created order. Paul talks just the opposite of that in Romans 1. When we talk about the world spirit, we're talking about that evil satanic spirit that's in the world. That does not want to see the unpacking of the sons of God, and it is doing everything it can right now to stop the unpacking of the sons of God, to revealing the sons of God. And you can feel that pressure. You can feel that heat. And it's doing everything to stop and to kill that. But it will not succeed. Jesus taught in parables for one or two reasons. To reveal the kingdom to those who wanted it, and to conceal it from those who didn't want it, who did not welcome it. So he talked in parables so the other ones didn't get it. And you notice the questions usually always came from the religious deep state. That ecclesiastical deep state, which is actually responsible for killing him. Anyway, even believers, the point is this, even true believers, we have to maintain and insist on that expectation on the inside of us, and that eagerly awaiting, if you will, to insist and believe in our sonship over against the massive seemingly evidence of much of our circumstances and situations in which we live in this country and in this world today, which seems to be inconsistent with being a son of God. We are living between the already and the not yet, in other words. That's what this is about. And so we're not there yet. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. And the entire created order has that expectation of craning its neck, looking for it, seeing it come, and then being right there to welcome it when it happens. Now, that's all the further we're going to go right now, because it'll take a long time to get through the rest of it. This is good stuff here. I don't mind saying it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I didn't write it. I'm just unpacking it. It's incredible. Listen, I sense God. I sense, and that's our hope. What we're talking about is that hope that's coming. We'll hit that next time. Well, I got a lot to say about that. It's incredible. Oh, God have mercy. It's good. Eagerly await and expect. First, expectation. There has to be that expectation. What is it? It's this. So, when you're walking and you're coming to around a corner, go like this before you step out into the street. Hey, that's another good example. Make sure it's not Satan coming down there with a big truck to run you down. Don't step out there. If you get the picture, I'm just being facetious here. But the eager expectation, have the attitude of craning your neck out and looking around the corner, watching for it. And then when you see it, get into position, ready to welcome it. What a great day it's going to be. Now that tells us, by the way, that this created order is inextricably bound with us. And we are inextricably bound with that created order. We're going to fuss with that next time, all right? So anyway, Jesus is coming back, and he's coming back pretty soon. It won't be long. Signs are everywhere, as it were. Expectation. Be looking all over the place and be ready to get into position. Amen? Okay. In the Lord, we'll see you next time with verse 20.